Hey traders, welcome back to another PineScript video. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to add a visual backtester to your strategy scripts. So this is a pretty cool feature. It shows how many trades your script took, what your win rate was, what your ending balance was. It shows your dollar return, your pip return, your max drawdown and return as a percentage. And this is all based on a setting in the settings menu, where you can input your starting balance, your risk per trade, and there's an option here to turn on or off this feature. So for today's lesson, I'm going to be using a script that we used in a previous lesson just to save time. Today's lesson is not about the strategy script itself, it's about adding this little backtester thing to your existing scripts or future scripts you make. So for today's lesson, we're going to be working with the hammers and stars strategy script that I showed you how to create in a previous lesson. There'll be a link to that lesson in the video description if you haven't seen it and you're interested in how this script works. But for today, I'm going to maximize my screen, open up the source code to the script. I'm going to remove all of the backtester code and we'll start from scratch. I'll show you how I added this to the script line by line. So here we are with just a standard strategy script. If I open up the tester, we have all our details here. But one problem with the backtester system for me as a Forex trader is I like to trade a position size that is equivalent to a percentage of my account balance. So I usually trade 1%, 2% maximum, depending on the strategy. And the TradingView backtester system doesn't allow you to reflect that information on the backtester system. So what my code is going to do when we write it out is it's going to use the same strategy tester information, but display that information as if we were backtesting using a fixed position size percentage of our account balance. So without further ado, let's get into the lesson. So I've written this code out in such a way that it should be copy and pastable into any script you write. By the way, if I start looking sweaty in this lesson, that's because it's coming into summer here in Australia and it's bloody hot today. So the first thing I do here, since this is like a module, it's a copy and pastable block of code, I like to comment it into its like comment the beginning and ending of this block of code. So I just call this begin tester code. I'll also add on the end tester code. And now all of our tester code, our custom tester code, is going to fall between these comments. And I'm going to add a bunch of white space on the bottom here so that my footer doesn't get in the way of the code. All right, so the first thing we need to do is declare our balance tracking variables. And we have a bunch of those here. We have, actually, I'll just copy and paste these over to save time because it's not important that you watch me write these out. We have a bunch of persistent variables here. And if you've watched any of my previous lessons, you know that persistent just means these variables do not reset on each bar that prints on our chart. Once they are declared, they stay as this value until we overwrite the value later. If we did not have VAR on the end of these, then on every new bar that prints on our chart, these variables would be reset. And we don't want that. These variables are supposed to track our strategy performance over the historical price action on our chart. So we want these to be persistent. So we use the VAR operator. So we have our account balance. This is our current balance. We have a starting balance as well, which we'll get to in a second, but this is our balance that updates over the course of historical testing. We have our current drawdown, our max drawdown, our maximum balance. This is used for calculating our drawdown percent. Then we have our total pips, long wins, short wins. I don't actually think I use these in this particular script. Let me just check. Yeah, I don't use these particular variables in our script, so we can get rid of these. But if you wanted to, you could add a tracker that tracks how many long trades won and how many short trades won. For today, I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. I don't want to overload you guys with too much information. So we're going to stick with total pips, total wins, total loss, and this will the total wins and total loss will give us our overall win percentage. These are the only variables we're going to be tracking today, but you can track all kinds of things. So like if I add on the latest version of my ultimate pullback indicator that I'm working on, if I hide the hammers and stars strategy, once this loads, it takes a little while because it's a very long script, nearly 1,000 lines of code now. So it takes a while to compile. There we go. So let me go to a market that it performs quite well on. So here we are on euro dollar 1 hour chart. Also, let me turn off my indicator values just temporarily so it doesn't draw over the top of this, and I'll turn off our indicator arguments as well, just because I have my screen resolution so high that this is going to draw over the top of our tester thing. If I turn on my draw backtester results and turn all of these on, you can see that my ultimate pullback indicator is tracking my average risk reward, my wins, losses, long win percentage, short win percentage, break even rate. This is just using a 1-to-1 fixed target at the moment. But if I were to change my exit reason here to, like, say, use a higher close, lower close exit, my average risk reward will update. So now we have a 1.18 average risk reward with a 51% win rate. And we had a 58% return with a 15% max drawdown. Let me turn this exit reason off. We also have our max adverse excursion and our max favorable excursion. So this is how far price went against us before hitting our target is our max adverse excursion. Our max favorable excursion is how far price went towards our profit target before coming up and stopping us out. And then I have my danger zone, which is the minimum win percentage I need in order to turn a profit. If the win rate falls below this, then it's not profitable. And so if we go out to a different time frame and try and find a time frame where it's not profitable, here we go. You can see my win rate turns red because 47% with a 1-to-1 risk reward profile is not profitable. It's not above our 50% danger zone. And this danger zone updates based on our average risk reward. So if I turn on this exit reason again, you can see our danger zone has changed because we have a 1.14 average risk reward. So the whole reason I am showing you this is just to show you what's possible with displaying your custom backtested data onto your chart. It makes the backtesting process significantly more efficient, and it makes it easier for you to identify markets that may be profitable to trade with your particular strategy. Anyway, let's get back to our code. So we have all of our persistent balance tracking, or performance, this should probably say performance tracking variables. Now let's check when a trade is closed for a profit, and we can track our performance metrics based on profitable trades, and then we can track our losing trades as well. So this is detect winning trades. So if strategy.win trades is not equal to strategy.win trades on the previous bar, this means that our winning trades has changed. The inbuilt strategy variable win trades has changed, which means we've won a trade. And so we can now update our performance tracking variables based on this if condition. So the first thing we're going to do is increment our balance, our trading balance. Actually, before we do this, I need to add in our start balance as a user input and our risk per trade as user inputs. So let's scroll all the way up to our user input settings here. And I'm going to add my backtester settings above my Pine Connector and Auto View settings section. I'm going to paste that in there, and I'll just explain what these are. We have our start balance, which is just our starting balance by default set to $10,000. And then we have our risk per trade, which by default is set to 1. So 1% of our $10,000 starting balance will be the risk we put on our first trade. And this 1% risk will adjust based on our account balance. So if we lose a few trades, it'll decrease our risks, our position size. If we win a few trades, it'll increase our position size. Then we have our draw backtester setting. So this is just a little checkbox that turns on or off our backtester display. So now that we have those added to the script, we can finish our if statement here. So if we just won a trade, that means we need to increase our account balance by 1%, or whatever our risk setting is. So here we would say balance is to be set to or overwritten with this value, which will be balance plus our risk per trade divided by 100 to convert our whole number into a percentage. So this is just to make it more intuitive for the user. We could get rid of the divide by 100 and just have this as 0.01. That would be 1%. But I think it's more intuitive to work with whole numbers here. So to convert 1 into 1% mathematical terms, we need to divide 1 by 100 to get 0.01. And then we need to multiply this value by our current balance. So multiply by balance. And then we need to multiply this risk amount. So this will give us our risk per trade as a dollar amount or dollar figure. Now we need to multiply that dollar figure by our risk reward profile. So here I can add on RR, which is our risk reward setting in the settings menu. And so now when we win a trade, our balance will be updated. It will be set to our balance plus our risk dollars multiplied by our risk reward profile. Next up, I track the total pips we've made. So for this, I just add total pips is set to total pips plus. And then all we need to do here is use the abs function. This is the absolute function. So if this will turn a negative number into a positive number. And for this, we can just simply minus our entry price from our target price. So T entry and T target are the variables that track. So this is a short trade. If we have a valid short setup, we set T target and T entry to the appropriate price values. So by subtracting our T entry from our T target and converting that into an absolute number, so a positive number, it doesn't matter whether this is a short trade or a long trade, we will get how many pips we just made on this winning trade. Next up, we need to increment our total wins tracker by total wins plus 1. We'll just add 1 to our win counter. And then we need to check if our account balance is greater than our max account balance, then we need to set max balance to our current account balance. And this is used for tracking our drawdown so that we can see how far off we are from our new equity high. So that's it for tracking our winning trades. Next up, we just need to track our losing trades. So detect losing trades. And for this, we do the same thing. If strategy.loss_trades is not equal to strategy.loss_trades on the previous bar, then we've just had a change in our losing trade counter. That means we just lost the trade. And now we can pretty much copy this code here, or at least this code here, and paste it in here. And now we need to change a few things here. So we need to subtract our dollar risk multiplied by our risk reward. Actually, we don't want to multiply this by our risk reward because our risk reward profile doesn't matter for our loss. It will always be one risk, 1R. So we will subtract our percentage of our account balance. So if we just lost 1% of our account balance, that would be 1% multiplied by our account balance would be subtracted from our account balance. If that makes sense. Next up, we need to subtract our total pips, but instead of T entry minus T target, we want T entry minus T stop. And then we need to increment our total loss, not our total wins. So now we're tracking our balance, total pips, total loss. The final thing to do is to update our drawdown. So to do that, all we need to do is set our drawdown to our balance divided by our maximum account balance or our equity high, and then subtract 1 from that value. And that will give us our drawdown percentage, our current drawdown percentage. Then finally, we need to check if our current drawdown is lower than our max drawdown. Then we want to override our max drawdown with our current drawdown. So this will track our maximum drawdown from our maximum account gain. So every time we hit a new equity high, as soon as we encounter a losing streak, this will track our worst losing streak over historical price action or losing period. It doesn't have to be a losing streak. And then now that's it basically. Let me save the script to make sure we have no errors. Okay, so everything is fine. The last thing we need to do is display this information. And to do that, I use the new PineScript feature of tables. So we can use tables to display data onto our charts now. And this is how we do it. So we need to prepare our stats table first. And to do that, I use another persistent variable, var table. So we're declaring a new table. And this table is just going to be called test table, since this is a backtesting display table. And I'm going to set this to table.new. And then we need to give it a couple of arguments for this table.new function. The first one is where we want to display the table. So I'm going to put my table as position dot, and And then here are all your options. So you could add a setting to the settings menu if you wanted to, and the user could move this display table anywhere on their chart. I'm just going to leave mine in the top right-hand corner for now. But I encourage you to play around with your positions, especially if you prefer your table to be displayed somewhere else. Down on the bottom left is a good place for it as well because it's outside of price action. But I'm happy with having it in the top right, so I'll leave it there for now. The next thing we need to do is specify how many columns and rows we want in our table. Now it's important that you provide the correct quantity of columns and rows. If you provide too few columns or rows and you try to add data to those columns or rows, your script will not compile. You'll get an error. So you can have more columns than you use, but not fewer. So for today's lesson, we're just going to go with 5 columns and 2 rows. So we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns and 2 rows. Next up, we need to specify, we don't need to, but we can specify our border width. And I just set mine to 1. This is the distance between all of the cells in your table. Next up, I'm going to declare a custom function. This is going to be called f_fill_cell. And this custom function is going to take a handful of arguments. The first one is our, table ID. That would be this variable name. So when we use this function later, we need to pass in our test table as our first parameter. The next thing we need to do is specify which column we want to update, or which column and row we want to fill the cell on. The next one is our row, the next parameter. The next parameter is our title, and then the value that we want to display. Then we have background color and text color. And to declare or initialize a custom function, we need to use the equal and then right arrow operator. Then we need to indent or tab below this function so that the PineScript knows that all the code under this tab falls within the scope of this function. And this function is going to be quite simple. The first thing I do is just declare my cell text, and this just combines the title with our value. So this is going to say title plus, and then a string here with a backslash and an N. So this is an escape character, and this means new line. So we have our title, and then on a new line, we add our value. And then finally, to wrap up this function, we need to use the table.cell function to fill the given cell on the given column and row with this data. So to do that, we need to pass in our table ID, and then the column and the row we want to update, and then we need to specify our the text of the cell. So we're just going to pass cell text into there. Then we need to specify our background color. That's going to be set to BG color, and then our text color is going to be set to text color. Now that should be okay. Let's save the script, make sure that that compiles okay, and no issues there. So now the final thing to do is to draw our stats table. Now the best practice for working with tables is to check if we are on the last bar on our chart. So for this, I use the bar state.is last confirmed history. So that would be this bar here. This is the last confirmed historical bar on our chart. On this bar, our table will be drawn onto the chart. We don't want the table drawing on every bar on our chart because we're only going to see the latest update of the table. So you don't need to have this if statement in your script, but it will make your script a little bit more efficient on the TradingView servers when it compiles and when it runs. So it won't be updating your table on every single bar on the chart. It'll only update the table once on the final bar when it's drawn onto our chart. So keep that in mind when working with tables. TradingView have said that it's best practice to only update your table on the very last historical bar or real-time bar. Now, before we continue, I do like to specify a default background color for my table. And then I override this default background color if I need to. So that'll make sense in a moment. But for now, I'm going to set my default background color to color.new color.black with a transparency of 0%. So next up, we also need to check if the user has turned on or off the draw backtester setting in the settings menu. So I'm going to indent that if statement there, and I'm going to add another one here that says if draw tester. So if we have the draw tester turned on, and this is the last bar in our chart, then we want to draw our table or update our table with our backtester data. So update table. Before we start filling our data, we need to calculate our dollar return. So that's going to be set to our current balance minus our starting balance. So this will tell us how much of a dollar return we've made. And now we need to use our custom fill cell function to fill all of the cells on our table that we created. Remember, we have 5 columns, 2 rows. So to do this, we need to call fill cell. We need to pass in our test table ID. That's this guy here. We need to specify a column and a row. So the first cell on our table is going to be 0, 0, and then 0, 1, and then 1, 0, 1, 1, etc. You'll see in a moment how that works. Then we need to specify our title. So the title for our first cell is going to be our total trades. And then we need to specify a value. So for this, I'm going to use the toString function. So toString, because remember, we're adding this value parameter to a string. So we need to convert any numbers we want to display in our table to a string using the inbuilt toString function. So for this, I'm just going to say strategy.closedTrades. This will get how many trades have been confirmed, or like how many trades have won and lost over our historical price data. Then we need to specify our background color. I'm going to just leave this as our default black background color. And then we need to specify a text color. And for most of our cells, it's just going to be color.white. So let's save this script and see what happens. We should now be getting total trades drawn in the top right-hand corner once the script compiles. There we have it. Perfect. So now all we need to do is fill out our table with all of this data here. And so to do that, I'm going to copy this line of code and paste it in a couple of times. Now I'll explain the row and column thing here. So for this, we're updating the 0 or first column and the first row of our chart. Next up, we want to update the first column but second row of our chart. Remember, everything in programming starts from 0. So 0 is the first, 1 is the second. And then next up, we want to update the second column and the first row and first row and second column. So this is just going to be 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 2, 0, 2, 1, etc. until we've filled out our entire table. So the next thing I display here is our win rate. And to calculate that, we just divide our strategy.wintrades by our strategy.closedTrades. And then we need to multiply this by 100 to convert this into a percentage. And then I want to add the percentage sign to the end of this number. And then we can leave our default background color and text color. Next up, we have our starting account balance. So for this, I'm going to start with a $sign and then add on our start balance. And then we have our ending balance. And then same thing here, $sign plus our balance. So let's save the script and see if we get our new cells updated. And there we go. But you can see that we have a lot of decimal places here. That is not ideal for displaying this information. So we are going to use the truncate function that we created when I showed you how to create this hammers and stars strategy script. There should be a truncate function here, which cuts the excess decimal places off any given number. So first we have our win rate with too many decimals. So here we'll just say truncate this number to 2 decimal places. And then we also have our ending balance, which needs to be changed. So here we can just say truncate our balance to 2 decimal places. Now if I save the script, these numbers should look a lot more readable, or not quite. I need to put this comma 2 within these parentheses. Now that should work. All right, now that's fixed. We have our decimal places being truncated to just 2 digits. looks a lot better, much easier to read. So we only have a few more things to add here. That is our return as a dollar amount, our total pips, our return as a percentage, and our max drawdown. So I'm going to copy all 4 of these lines, paste them in here, and change this to 2, 2, 3, 3, and these can stay as 0, 1, 0, 1. And now our next display variable is going to be return. The one after that is pips. The one after that is return again, and the one after that is max drawdown. So our first return is going to be a dollar amount. So for this, we're just going to truncate our dollar return to 2 decimal places. And then we're going to change the background color based on whether we made money or lost money. So for that, we just check dollar return greater than 0 question mark. If so, set it to color.green. Otherwise, set it to color.red. Next up, we have our total pips. So let me get rid of all of these so that's not confusing. So our total pips, the first thing we're going to check is, do we have a positive number here? So is total pips greater than 0 question mark? If so, then we want to add a plus sign in front of this value. Otherwise, we just want to add nothing, because if it's a negative number, it will have a negative sign in front of it. It will have the minus sign in front of it. And I need to put this into parentheses. And then I need to add on our total pips truncated to 2 decimal places. So total pips, comma 2, and we're done there. Next up, we have our return as a percentage. So I'm going to do the same thing here as we just did for our total pips. I'm going to say, is dollar return greater than 0 question mark, then add a plus sign. Otherwise, add nothing. And now we need to do similar math to our win rate. We need to divide our dollar return by our start balance. And then we need to truncate that number to 2 decimal places. So we truncate our dollar return divided by our start balance, multiplied by 100, and truncate it to 2 decimal places. And then I'm also going to change the background color of this cell based on whether we made money or lost money. So I'll paste that code in there. If we made money, it'll be green. If we lost money, it will be red. Finally, we have our max drawdown. This one is easy. Again, we need to truncate the number, otherwise we'll get 1,000,000 decimal places for whatever reason. So truncate our max drawdown, multiply by 100, and truncated to 2 decimal places. And for our max drawdown, we want to set the color to red, so that it's always red. I think that just makes it more intuitive to read this tester table. So finally, we should be done here. If I save the script, hopefully we don't get any errors. And I spoke too soon. I've got my parentheses all mixed up here, so I need to add parentheses around this value here, and then add another parentheses on the end of that. So if I save the script, there we go. Now it's working fine. We should have everything drawing in the top right hand corner here. There we go, perfect. Now there are a couple of things I messed up here. We need to add a percentage sign on the end of our return here, and we need to add one on the end of our max drawdown. So let's get rid of that dollar sign there and add on a percentage sign, and then same for our return. We need to add on a percentage sign on the end there. And also our total pips, we need to convert to a whole number. So I'm going to use the to-whole function that we created when I showed you how to create this script in the previous lesson. Again, a link will be in the video description. We're using this function to convert our pips into whole numbers. So let's save this script and see if everything is working okay. And there we go. Finally, we have our backtester display drawing properly. We have our total trades. Let me open up the strategy tester system here. You can see that our win rate is the same as this. Our total trades is the same as this. Our starting balance was $10,000. Our ending balance was $14,000, which is a return of $4,000 or 40%. We ended with 8,800 pips. This is a daily chart strategy, so each trade that we win is usually over 100 pips, so that's not an unusual number to see, even though it's quite high. Being a daily chart strategy, these results are over several years of data. So I believe from 2005 until now. No, here we go, 2005. So January 2005 is when our script began taking trades, because for whatever reason on Oanda, there were no wicks prior to 2005. And this being a hammers and stars strategy requires wicks in order to detect hammers and stars. So it doesn't start trading till the 1st of January 2005. And this was the theoretical results of this strategy over that time period. Now, I say theoretical because obviously it doesn't take into account slippage, missed trades, trades that nearly won but then turned into a losing trade because of spread and your profit target wasn't filled, or price coming really close to your stop loss, stopping you out by the spread and then continuing on to hit the profit target. The TradingView tester is not smart enough to understand or account for that information. So this information should only be taken as a very rough guide. The way I personally use it in my own trading is I will just cycle through these markets and check what its return and max drawdown was and its win rate. And based on whatever risk reward profile I'm using, if I see numbers here that look promising, then I will go back and manually backtest the data to confirm that there weren't too many trades that were questionable. And by that I mean any trades that came very close to the stop loss but didn't quite hit it and wasn't counted as a losing trade in the tester system, I would manually count that as a losing trade. And vice versa, any trade that came down and touched my take profit but I didn't exceed it by my average spread on this market, I would exclude that as a losing trade if the price went on to reverse and hit my stop loss. Little things like that. And I did do a video recently on the limitations of the TradingView strategy testers. So if this is something that is new to you and you weren't aware that the strategy tester isn't as accurate as we might hope as traders, make sure to go and watch that video, because it is very important that you are informed about the limitations of the TradingView backtester system. Anyway, with that said, that pretty much wraps up this lesson. Just before we end, let's play around with some of these settings. So let's change our start balance to $100,000. It doesn't change anything other than our return dollar amount and our ending amount. Let's try changing our risk reward. Let's try 2% risk. That should double our max drawdown and our return. And so everything seems to be working fine. So you should be able to copy and paste this entire block of code into any script, any strategy script. The only thing you'll need to track is your trade entry and trade target. Apart from that, and you can do that using VAR variables, and whenever your script enters a trade, make sure to save your entry price and save your target price and your stop price. And then this code should work just fine, so long as you update the T entry, T target, and T stop to whatever you call it in your script. And don't forget to add the backtester settings to your script as well, the user input. Anyway, that'll do it for today's lesson. This went on a little longer than I anticipated. I wanted to try and keep this lesson short, but it's quite hard to do, as I'm sure you've noticed if you've been following any of my lessons. It's quite hard to explain these concepts in a really short, quick, and concise manner. But I hope you found this interesting. I hope you found this valuable in your trading. It's quite a cool feature. I've been going back and adding this to all of my scripts. You can also add this to indicator scripts, like I showed you earlier with my ultimate pullback indicator. This is a study script. If I open up the source code here, this is a study. It is not a strategy script, but it is still displaying the same information. The only difference with this, obviously, is that I had to track how many trades hit their profit target, how many trades hit their stop loss, and so on. Basically, I had to recreate the TradingView backtester system in custom code to simulate the same thing that the backtester system does. Which, if you're experienced with PineScript, isn't too difficult. You just need to use a lot of VAR variables and track when candles hit your stop loss or take profit. And then you can create all kinds of cool things here. Like, for example, if I want to change my risk reward to 2 to 1 and my break even at 1 to 1. So when price hits a 1 to 1 target, my stop loss comes down to break even. And you can see that my break even rate is being tracked here by the script as well. So there are a lot of cool things you can track with this code and display onto the chart for yourself or for people who use your script. And I think that'll do it for today's lesson. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.